Live from New York, it's Ask an Engineer.
Hey everybody, and welcome to Ask Engineer. It's me, LadyAda, the engineer. With me, Mr. LadyAda on camera control and controlling the universe from inside of his Boltzmann brain. We've got an exciting show.
I made you watch a video about that.
Yeah, watch a video. We got an exciting show for you tonight. We've got all sorts of news and new products and videos. Everybody's favorite segment, chip shortage.
Yeah, that's back.
It's back. Well, we don't want to overdo it. As you know, you want to beg for chips sparingly.
There's so many chips to beg for.
I know, but we actually got some in. We got some Grand Centrals in just an hour ago. Very exciting stuff. So some parts are coming in, but for the next hour, we're broadcasting live from this factory behind us where we do all this kitting and manufacturing and testing and coding and pick and placing. Yeah. So let's kick it off. What's on tonight's show, Mr. LadyAda?
On tonight's show, the code is FUEL. 10% off in the Adafruit store all the way up to 11:59 p.m. tonight. Use it or lose it. You also get free stuff. We'll talk about that in a bit. We have a bunch of Adafruit live shows. We'll talk about that and more, including show and tell. We got some time travel, little updates, news, and more things that are going around in the world of makers, hackers, artists, and engineers. We've got everyone's favorite segment. It's back, and it's never kind of gone away, and who knows when we're going to stop doing this. This week, chip shortages, TDK, and Vincennes. From the mailbag, we read your letters that you sent in. We got some advanced manufacturing, made in New York City footage. And I'm going to make an announcement. I'll even say it now. We're done doing time lapses of the Disney building across the street. Just done, okay? So you can do some 3D printing.
Watch the last 2 years of videos.
We do some 3D printing videos. We got Ion MPI brought to you by DigiKey this week. It is a new product from Microchip. We've got some new products. We've got a top secret video. We're going to answer your questions. We do that over on Discord, adafruit.it/Discord or discord.gg/Adafruit. Join all 35,000 of us and more. All that on tonight's show, Ask an Engineer.
Yay!
Okay, let's kick it off right away.
No more. The mouse doesn't get any more free video time on this show.
Yeah, we change up stuff all the time. You know what's great about impermanence is change, because we've been doing the time lapse of the building across the street, and I'm just you know what, it's time to turn the page on that chapter. It's the building's built. Maybe we should do time lapses of other things that we want to see.
Well, there's the other side of the building. We could point it out towards the city.
There's plants. There's also time lapses that we can do of maybe some of the manufacturing things. So anyways, I'm just gonna shift gears. We do free stuff in addition to the code. Code's FUEL. LadyAda, what do they get when they spend some bucks?
When you buy stuff from Adafruit.com, and I did mention we have Grand Centrals back in stock. We also have some Teensy 4s if you act quick. You can get some free goodies in your cart automatically added. $99 or more, you get a free Permaproto half-sized breadboard. It's a lovely way to make your projects permanent. $149 or more, you get a KB2040. This all-in-one microcontroller board is adorable. Features the RP2040, 8 megabytes of flash, a STEMMA QT port, USB-C, and it's castellated, great for all sorts of Arduino or CircuitPython projects. $199 or more, you get free UPS ground shipping in the continental United States. And as we mentioned, back by popular demand, and because we actually got some chips in, we have the Circuit Playground Express for $299 or more orders. It's a wonderful way and a wonderful gift for people who want to learn programming and electronics. No soldering is required. Everything is on the board.
All right, and don't forget to make an account on Adafruit.com, verify your account, and do two-step authentication. Do that for all of your online activity. It's that sites that have it, and if they don't,
you notice it's all security everywhere.
If they don't have it, email them and say, hey, I really want two-factor authentication. Because if you read the news, everything is leaky, it's unending, it's never going to end. Computers just were made to copy and share. It's not going away. You can't put the genie back in the bottle. So this has been something that's been helpful for our community. And, just for the folks who know how we do things at Adafruit, the very first day that someone steps into our Adafruit, we start doing training about what's important with email. When they use Adafruit email, of course, they're two-step authenticated, but we also do things like, hey, this is what a phishing attempt or an email looks like, because this is happening in all of our lives. We do a daily stand-up meeting in shipping, and I think it was a week or so ago. I said, hey, like, watch out. A lot of us are getting text message spams just in our personal life. And it's like, log into your, TD bank account. And someone's like, yeah, I got one of those. I have Chase. And then another person said, yeah, I got one to log into your Chase account, but I don't even use Chase Bank. So this is happening everywhere. And there's probably no way to ever stop it. So all you can do is continually educate and make people feel like it's safe to talk about how all these computers and things are out there and how they can be used or misused, and phones are now a supercomputer in our pocket. So get a taste of it at Adafruit, and then
Great practice.
Share this type of practice. Even if you're at a company where they're thinking of this stuff, all this extra layers, and there's no way to stop it, but these extra layers are just ways to help protect your data. And that's one of the things that we've always made sure that was a core promise, is like we guard your data tenaciously. One of the things that we always say, if there's no data, you don't have to worry about it. So we don't do lots of logging and like info sharing with third parties. There's a lot of things that we decided not to do. I guess one thing that I like to always hear from customers, they're like, I love going to the Adafruit site because I have an account there and I'm logged in. But when I go off the website later, I don't get a weird email that says, hey, do you still have stuff in your cart? It is like weird that a lot of sites, you go to a website, now you're on newsletters forever, or you think you're going to buy something, and then you get an email.
There's no cookies. We don't rent, sell, borrow any of your info. We actually delete a bunch of logs after 30 days. We really don't want to keep that stuff around.
And then the other thing that we did is on Learn, we just updated our Learn guide. You can use YubiKeys, and you can also, if you're on Linux, Authy, we updated all the guides, so we're also educating how to do this.
Yes.
So that's our security notice that we're going to continue to get the word out.
I use Authy all the time. I love it. I have YubiKeys. There's all sorts of improvements on. Yeah. Especially if you're someone who reuses passwords. I know you're not supposed to, but I know people do. Two-factor is going to help you. Yeah, and I'll just say this, so maybe I can send it over. We love you, Mudge. Thank you for doing all the things you do. So I'll send this to Mudge later. Okay. So we do a series of live shows, like this one. Oh yeah, this is live.
Yeah, it's live. Special thanks to Noah and Pedro, who did the show and tell. Make sure you watch it on any of our streaming platforms. JP's doing the one next week, and then I think we're going to be doing the one after, but we'll see. Desk of LadyAda, we do that show every week. LadyAda, what was on the desk this week? And I remembered to do this again. Oh,
what?
Man. It's going to stop, so you got.
Oh, okay. That's fine.
Do you remember what you're talking about?
No, I remember what we talked about. So we actually did a lot of light sensors. We did the GUVA UV sensor. I put that together, the LTR 329 and the LTR 303. And we actually ended up going out to a park and testing out the UV sensor outdoors as well, because it's hard to test UV sensors indoors. Lamps don't usually trigger off a really good UV sensor. So I got that going. So I showed off the CircuitPython libraries, and we also got the tester for the Max 17048, which is the new product for the week.
Yeah, and then we did the Great Search. That's the time when LadyAda uses her power of engineering to find all the parts you need on digikey.com. Okay.
So this week, yet another part that's unavailable, the CCS 811 is a very popular gas sensor from Sciosense, I think, and we looked to find a alternative, and we found a couple of good options.
Okay. And then JP's product pick of the week, that is Tuesdays. A little bit of a programming note, though. Thursday, JP's off, so you won't see JP's workshop, but we do have a product pick highlight of the week this week.
It's the PCF8574. It is a GPIO expander that runs over I2C with two convenient Stemma QT connectors on it. And this allows you to add up to 8 digital inputs or outputs. So you can use these as current syncing LEDs, or you can use them as inputs for buttons and switches. I'm essentially running each button to a ground rail, and that ground rail goes to this negative input or ground on the PCF8574. And then each of these, they're labeled pin 0 through 7, run to the other side of each of these switches. As I press buttons on my button board here, I am turning on and off a little print statement here. It is the PCF8574 GPIO expander with STEMMA QT.
And on Fridays, we do Deep Dive with Tim. Tune in. 2 p.m., there was a Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern. There was a big ol' series of videos that we did last week. We'll talk about the CircuitPython Day.
And there's a new guide is coming out from Tim, and he's been showing off how he built the guide in the video. So if you're interested in deep dives on graphics and game programming with CircuitPython and Python, check these videos out.
Okay, time travel. What I think I'm going to do is, I think I'm going to have a little spot on the AdaBox site because I do a little update every week. And then I could probably just link to the time code and just say, like, here's our latest message. Because I do this every week. So AdaBox, we're still squirreling away all the parts that we can.
I'm stuffing them in my cheeks.
So, so we can, so AdaBox is thousands of thousands at a time. So right now we put in thousands of products, but there's chip shortages, so they go in and out of
get
stock
like 100
really
at a
fast.
time.
Yeah. So we've been riding the chip shortage wave to run Adafruit. Adabox has been a little bit more challenging. So we went from maybe we could do winter, maybe we could do spring. We're in summer. I think this is going to be autumn edition. We'll see. But the challenge that we have, and I think that's why I'm going to put this on the site, is we don't want to send you an email for no good reason and say, hi, there's no updates. But we also want to make sure you're updated. So people email us and they're like, is there any updates? And we're like, no updates. We don't charge the credit cards or anything until we ship. So it doesn't matter how long it lasts. We have a huge waiting list for people to get on. So if folks are going off Adabox, that's fine. But as of right now, no new updates. Not sure if we're going to tell you that there's no updates, but we'll continue to talk about this with our team, with our community, and the Adabox customers. I think using this form of media is the way to go, because it's like, oh, if you're really curious, we kind of plaster this everywhere, and we have the show every week and everything. So
and people also tell others, like, oh, if you want an update, check out
and it's in Discord and all this stuff. So
Ask
I'm just, we're always reluctant to blast email if there's no good reason, there's no action, there's nothing to do. But we'll do that too, if needed. Adafruit IO update. So what's new?
Lots of updates.
Yeah, lots of updates. So IO now has more beautiful components. You can configure them on-off boring. Well, now you can put custom labels. You can also assign icons to the components. You can use font awesome and emojis, which is really neat.
It's really neat.
Yeah. Components now can display their units, like metric.
Yeah, like
and
degree
then,
C or percentage or volts or whatever.
Much more customizable and more. So I got all this going on here. You can see it in the screen. It's beautiful. It's functional. It's free. It's easy. It's no code. This is one of the only and best services that works with any hardware. If the hardware's not there, you can do a
pull request.
And
we
just
got
add
two this week. 2 people added sensors. People can add boards. It doesn't have to be from Adafruit, by the way. It can be from any vendor. We take pull requests for sensors or boards from anybody. We support multiple other vendors' boards where it's not locked in. And we're going to be adding more and more. Right now, it's just we have the hardware on hand, so we know for sure it works with our stuff. But we're really excited to see more and more people submitting pull requests to adding new sensors, I2C sensors, and now you can add digital and analog sensors as well, custom sensors. You just need a photo, edit a little bit of JSON, and submit it.
Yeah. I was thinking about how we've been doing a lot of stuff with Learn and Adafruit IO and our store over the years, and how we have a weekly show. So, but I also been thinking about how I've used some other, Internet of Things services, and they've gone out of business, or I've used them, and all of a sudden they say, no, you can only use our hardware, or you can only use this hardware, or you have to pay for this type of service and stuff. We have a pro version, plus version of Adafruit IO, please support it. But we're not going to ever do that. We're not going to force you to use
just get more.
Only our hardware.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't seem to make sense with how Internet of Things stuff should work. So, on one hand, there's endless gigs of videos of us doing these shows every week. On the other hand, I'm going to use that for future-proofing ourselves. So I'm just noticing a lot of the websites out there are starting to change their terms of service and do things that are like, by the way, you can only use this device. And oh, like, you know how there was a free tier where there's not a free tier anymore. And I feel like there should be ways to support these services and sites, but I don't know, it feels like a rug pull.
Well,
as they
we
say in
we
biz.
don't sell hardware like a lot of IoT companies. They sell their hardware at cost or below cost to try to make money on subscriptions. And
Yeah, we're
we
not
don't have VCs, and so there's nobody calling us every night saying, "Where's your subscription model?"
Why aren't you pivoting to coin?
Well, there's
Fintech.
we don't need any kind of blockchain. Where subscription revenue we make money.
Yeah.
If you go pro, we just give you more feeds, but that's because it does cost more to run the service if you're using
Yeah.
a lot of feeds.
And it's been working out. We've managed
But
to
people just buy
build a
hardware.
business and a company, and also have things like ISO.
Yeah.
Anyways, I wanted to mention that because it's rare and unique, and I have to remember to talk about this more, because with Adafruit, it's kind of just assumed, but it's very different out there. This is different than the rest of the world.
Oh, and if you guys have other requests for components or things, there's a place you can submit an issue. If you don't know how to do a PR, first of all, we can help you. We have a guide on also how to add components. But if you have a component that we sell that you want added, put in a issue request. And if and when we add it or somebody else does, you'll get notified.
Yeah. Okay, it's everybody's favorite segment. It's a chip shortage every day. It's a chip shortage in every way. This week, it's TDK. LadyAda.
That rhymed.
Yes.
Okay,
What
this
part
week,
can't we get?
we definitely cannot get this part, the TDK ICM 2948. It's a popular 9DOF sensor. The LSM 9DS1 disappeared. It's end of line. It's actually ironic. We actually got a couple of LSM 9DS1s. The problem, though, with the LSM 9DS1 is the price basically went up six times over the course of this chip shortage. But there's double the TDK.
I don't know why I did that.
Well, because you wanted more TDKs.
I guess so.
The ICM, 20, what was it? Shoot, now I forgot. 2948. It's actually the same company that makes the MPU 6050, and so this was a quite popular sensor because a lot of people, moved from the 6050 to this. So it's a great sensor. It has fusion built in. If you use their firmware, it's a cool chip. And guess what? We can't get any, Phil.
Yeah, so...
we can't get any of these chips.
Yeah, so I went to the website. I was like, well, maybe I can, find what TDK stands for.
You thought maybe you could find it?
Yeah, and so what do we use it in?
Well, we use it in our ICM breakout, which we have a lot of people waiting for. It's the STEMMA QT board's a really easy way to add 9DOF sensors to your project. Again, this is a really cool sensor with the accelerometer, gyro, and magnetometer built in. We can't make it.
Do children use this to learn?
Yes. There's people who are making robots that help children and orphans
Yeah,
and old ladies cross the street safely.
yeah.
It's also used video game systems, entertainment, things that bring joy,
So we went to the DigiKey site because we're like, well, maybe we can find some there.
No.
Yeah.
And there's not even, you can't even back order. I mean, you can, but they're like, we don't know when we're going to get it. And we did order, what was the date? I think we have it on the next slide. We ordered 3,000 in December of 2021. And now we're getting told we might not get some until July 2023, not this July, next July, or January 2024. Okay, I'm not convinced that this planet will be habitable then. I would like to get these sensors before some apocalypse occurs. Please.
Please,
Monsieur
Mr.
TDK.
TDK.
Please
really
send
want
us.
Yeah.
Please send us 1,000 or 2,000 pieces.
So in the chat, TDK stands for Tokyo Denki Kagaku,
Yeah.
which translates to
Hey, could you please send us some chips?
yes,
Thanks.
unending wave of chip. So I'm going to just play the song again, but yeah, we really need these.
Yeah, like this one is particularly since it'll be 3 or 4 years since they were ordered.
Yeah.
You know.
Okay, that's this week's chip shortage. Don't worry, we'll be back with another segment probably next week. All right. Yeah, someone was asking about t-shirts. Yeah, maybe we'll do it. We'll see. We might have to.
It's really funny. So
might
like,
have to pivot.
you know, on other sites, like not Adafruit sites, like people talk about chip shortage, and somebody's always like, check out this cool tune, and they send the clip of the 30-second song on YouTube.
Yeah, someone said we're YouTube influencers begging for chips now.
It's true.
Yeah,
But it works.
If only we could influence YouTube.
Yeah.
Letters, we get letters, we get tweets and we get emails. Your comments via RSS. They are
All right, so we get your letters. This one is from Ron. Very short and nice email to us and our team. Just wanted to say you guys are a very good company to deal with. Every transaction smooth. Ron, not a lot of words from Ron.
Why use many word when few word better?
Yeah,
faster.
If I had more time, I would have wrote you a shorter email. So thank you, Ron. I really appreciate that. That's nice. We share these with our team every single week because you know how it goes. You always don't get the good sprinkles. You have to make sure you distribute those. Sometimes people are mean. All right, Python on hardware time. I'm not going to say we have like a CircuitPython Day hangover because there's a lot going on Friday. But we're still kind of like, whoa, that was intense. So there was an unending day of things. But before we get to some of the highlights about that we wanted to mention, CircuitPython 8 beta is out, and LadyAda. Not only is this poster, I think there's still some available.
Yes.
Espressive still gave us permission to use the Espressive logo as part of it because that's a big chunk of what we're talking about with CircuitPython 8. But what are some of the things? Do you have any favorite things? I'm going to say Wi-Fi workflow, but
the Wi-Fi workflow is the biggest
That's the
thing.
biggest thing.
You know, Espressive. We also ESP32 as a chip that is supported. We've supported the ESP32 S2 and S3, and like the C3. But really, for that original ESP32 natural flavor, we needed to have Wi-Fi workflow or web workflow so that, well, I call it web, but it's Wi-Fi workflow, and we have a web browser interface to it that basically allows you to upload files, to have file editing, to have a REPL access, because we have USB CDC, but we don't have that mass storage for drag and drop. But we're hoping, you know, with the web interface, you can easily upload files, and it'll make it a lot easier for people to use ESP32 with CircuitPython. So it's really exciting. We have a couple boards. We're going to be adding more ESP32 boards, but folks out there, if you have, look in your box. You probably have some weirdo ESP32 chip, module, breakout board, dev board. Submit a PR, and we will add support for your board with all the pins and the namings. And, you know, default hardware. If there's a screen, we can have that the screen has the REPL, and it'll show the IP address when it connects. Wow, wouldn't that be fun? So it's definitely an invitation out there.
Okay. One thing too, there's a new feature, a .env file, so you could put like all the Wi-Fi stuff in instead of like a secrets file.
Yeah.
I think that's neat because if you're like old school and there was like, remember like window .ini files?
Yeah.
It's kind of like that. It's
Yeah,
cool.
it's apparently a standard, you know, a CPythonism that we're using, and we have a tutorial also how to get started with the ESP32. So if you're, you know, you can actually use honestly our Feather definition. It'll probably work for a lot of boards because a lot of people use the room module, but it's just the pin names might not be like, you know, LED.
So if you think about it, what's the future with a lot of microcontrollers? Well, they're probably going to be Bluetooth, Wi-Fi. They'll probably do things with batteries and screens, things like e-ink. And it'll probably have a scripting language like Python. And that's what we have with CircuitPython.
Yeah.
And the .env stuff, you're going to need to put things like Bluetooth values, names, and stuff like that. You'll need to put Wi-Fi passwords, credentials and stuff.
Yeah.
And so that's really powerful that you could do that just by plugging in, shows up a USB drive, could do that. And now you're doing this like a full-on little computer on the internet. Okay, so CircuitPython Day, we're calling it a success. Thank you so much, the entire team. Special hug report to Katney, helped coordinate a lot of it. So all the videos are on our YouTube. You can check out the CircuitPython Day introduction, celebrating code and community, CircuitPython Day panel discussion, the development sprint intro video, the CircuitPython project build with Maker Melissa, the special edition CircuitPython theme show and tell, the CircuitPython Day preview, the CircuitPython Day chat with Katney, Jeff, and Dan, and Foamy Guy CircuitPython Day Game Jam stream. And then there was also an additional one, reimagining IoT deployments with CircuitPython, and that was from Blues Wireless. So it was a day. You can watch all the stuff. All the videos are up, and there's still more going on. And we'll probably have, I think there's going to be some like office hour sprints coming up that the team's doing.
People love them, yeah.
Yeah, Tammy and Tetrick are doing. And then check out the rest of the newsletter. We have CircuitPython Target support.
Yes,
for
which
the
is really
RP
exciting. A
2040.
lot of people wanted it, and thank you to Mark for adding that PR. It was a community contribution, but it's really handy.
You could check out the latest CircuitPython show. Brent was interviewed there. And then just like the unending projects. I really like this. This is kind of nice.
What is it from a movie or something?
Yeah, it's from a Little Raccoon.
Okay,
thing.
there's a raccoon.
And then Scientific CircuitPython. That was one of the talks. That was from Twitter. And then just, unending projects and more, all made. Todd about had a really neat 3D printed case for this Raspberry Pi Pico step sequencer and programmed CircuitPython. It's kind of amazing to see this project go from like a tweet, like sketch, and then like real, and then playing stuff. And like look at it, like
It looks so cool.
that's something you can make.
And he's got the OLED. He's got those little stripes that make it so 80s.
Yeah.
Cool.
And so join the fun. You can get this delivered to your inbox every single week. Go to Adafruit Daily. And speaking of how we do things, adafruitdaily.com is a completely separate site. It has nothing to do with your store account at all whatsoever. We call it adafruitdaily.com. And that's so you know that this is just for newsletters. There's no spam, there's no ads, there's no nothing. There's no sponsorship on newsletters. It's just newsletters. And you can subscribe anytime, or you can also read on the website like I just showed.
I do.
And that is this week's Python hardware.
Thank you, Blinka.
Yeah. All right. We're an open source hardware company. We have 2,717 guides. And we do a bunch of open source.
Yeah.
This week on the big board,
Okay, we had a bunch of new
a lot.
and updated guides. Some of
Yeah.
these updated guides were really updated. So, first off, we updated the two-factor authentication guide. It now talks about YubiKeys, and I think we also added a page on Linux, and if not, we're going to add that. The how to set up a Raspberry Pi for a Wi-Fi access point, you can see it's using the original Pi 1. Paint Your Dragon went through and completely cleared it out and redid the whole thing. We published the CircuitPython ESP32 Quick Start. That's a new guide by Carter. That I chipped in a little bit too. Like we said, CircuitPython 8 now has ESP32 support for the original, not S2, not S3, not C3, ESP32. And if you want to get started, we show you how to set up your Wi-Fi credentials, connect over the Wi-Fi workflow. We're also working on getting Thonny working, and we're going to update this guide with all the latest, but you can get started now. And then we also have a new guide, the ESP32 S3 TFT Feather. Thank you, Katney, for writing it up. Arduino and CircuitPython support all the files. It's basically the ESP32 TFT Feather, but with a different module. But still, the downloads are all updated and corrected now. Liz capped off an amazing month of, 3 months of Raspberry Pi Azure IoT projects with CircuitPython, starting with making a little temperature humidity sensor that just sends data to the cloud, to now how you can have 3 or 4 devices and you can have a hub and it's on a Raspberry Pi with Python and it's displaying your status and check-in and your billing costs. So it's a powerful project that pulls together the previous few projects to really show how easy it is to make industrial grade, enterprise grade IoT with CircuitPython, Python, and Microsoft Azure. And thanks to Microsoft for sponsoring these guides, and we love doing them. JP updated the flying faders guide, the motorized fader guide, to now have Arduino support. I had CircuitPython before, but now it's Arduino-fied. And Jepler updated the camera images for CircuitPython guide. We refactored the library in 8 to use the ESP32 camera module, which is going to be much more supported than our kind of hand cobbled together version. And we're also adding ESP32 support, again, not S2 or S3. S2 and S3 are supported. We're now adding the original.
Okay. More guides ahead. We're on our way to 2800. Okay. It's time for some factory footage. And like I said, we're going to be switching gears up. This is some sky, because we're tired of showing this Disney building.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. So we'll have, I think we're just going to do some fun, weird time lapses, because enough is enough with the building. 3D printing. All right, we've got 2 projects. We're going to show this IoT project, and then we're going to do a fun speed up. This one's a skull within a skull within a skull within a skull within a skull.
That sounds metagoth.
You can build an IoT project and take control of it on your phone using Adafruit's Whippersnapper. IoT projects just got a whole lot easier. With Adafruit's Whippersnapper, you can connect I2C sensors and do useful things with your data. Capture temperature data to detect the humidity in a room so it can trigger a smart outlet and turn on a humidifier. Adafruit's Cutie Pie ESP32S2 is a small yet powerful IoT dev board that works great with Whippersnapper. Whippersnapper is Adafruit's no-code solution for making IoT projects with support for dozens of Wi-Fi-enabled dev boards. Dozens of IoT dev boards are supported and can be easily configured without having to install software or write any code. Now with support for Adafruit's StemmaQT sensors, you can daisy-chain multiple boards together for a plug-and-play experience. With dozens of StemmaQT sensors, you can detect light, temperature, humidity, pressure, and the air quality, just to name a few. You can 3D print a snap-fit case to house your sensors and use the mounting holes to secure everything together. Make it portable with a USB battery bank and start plotting your data on the go. Setting up Whippersnapper has gotten even better. Start by choosing your dev board or just type it in the search box. There's lots of new ESP32 based boards to choose from. Access your boards in the new devices page and quickly see their status and firmware. You can even update them by clicking on the update firmware link. Updating your devices now features an easy to follow wizard that walks you through each step. Just follow along to download the firmware and install it by dragging and dropping it onto your board. Add your Wi-Fi credentials to automatically generate the secrets JSON file needed for connecting your board to your network. Upload it to your dev board just like dragging and dropping a file to a USB flash drive. The LEDs on your device uses different colors to indicate their status so you can easily tell what's going on. You can add components to your device by clicking on the large plus icon. Choose from a list of basic pin components or the new I2C stemma sensors. Whippersnapper will automatically scan for connected components and let you enable features. The SCD30 sensor has temperature, humidity, and CO2 levels. You can set how often to read the data using the drop-down menu. Creating components automatically creates feeds and stores your data so you can start logging and plotting. Make beautiful dashboards to display your data using line charts, gauges, and other blocks. You can customize their appearance with the Edit Layout feature to resize or rearrange them however you like. Dashboards work great even on mobile devices, so you can customize them when you're on the go. Create a new timer action to make a feed turn something on for a set amount of time and then turn it off automatically. In this example, we're turning on a dehumidifier connected to a smart outlet whenever the sensor detects the humidity in the room is too high. More fun features have been added to Whippersnapper, like the ability to use emojis in your titles. We think this is a great way to tell your dashboards apart. We've also added the ability to change the icons and the various labels when configuring your components. Whippersnapper is free when using 2 devices with a limit of 10 feeds. To unlock more devices and feeds, you can upgrade to an Adafruit IO Plus plan. Just head on over to io.adafruit.com to get started. We hope this inspires you to check out the latest features in Adafruit's Whippersnapper and start making IoT projects.
And tune in every Wednesday at 11 a.m. to learn all this stuff on 3D Hangouts, the longest running 3D printing live show in the known universe. All right, LadyAda. A little bit of a note here, a little hug report, a couple of things. People really are digging Whippersnapper and Adafruit IO.
Yay.
Feedback, though, it's getting easier and easier every day.
Uh-oh.
I'm so sorry. You're going to save so much
sad
time.
pants.
Yeah, the experts, the cranky pants who want you to cut your teeth on things. You got to learn the hard way.
Yeah.
No, you don't, actually.
Well, that's why I like it. It's like we have we have these tutorials for Azure, like this extremely powerful cloud that does a ton of stuff, and Whippersnapper, which is plug and play. It's like there's space for both.
Yeah.
I wanted something that basically like school kids could use. Like you could just plug in some sensors, you type in a few things to get your Wi-Fi set up, and then your data's logged. You can track data. Like, it's so cool.
Yeah. So, thank you. All right, let's do some Eye on MPI.
Eye on MPI.
All right, Eye on MPI, brought to you by DigiKey and Adafruit. This week it is microchip. LadyAda, what is this week's Eye on MPI?
I'm glad you asked. You know what's funny is I don't think we've done microchip chips before. We've done some microchip other sensors and products, but this I think is the first microchip or at least AVR chip that we've covered on INPI, because we haven't used AVR chips. I mean, we use them all the time, but we haven't really talked about new ones as much. But there has been a lot of innovations in the 8-bit AVR microcontroller line from Microchip, and there's a new series that came out, and so I wanted to check it out. It's the DD series, the Microchip DD. Now, just to be clear, it says AVR 64. It's not 64-bit. That's just the size of the flash. And then DD is the series, and then 32 is the number of pins in this package. In this case, it's a 32-pin QFN. So what is this? It's an 8-bit micro. So if you're used to AVR microcontrollers like the Atmega or AT-Tiny or Atmega 328, this will be familiar. They run up to 64 megahertz, and again, it's one instruction per clock cycle. Some of them aren't, but many of them are, including a hardware multiply, which is a 2-cycle hardware multiplier. Runs at 24 megahertz, 1632, 64K of flash, 248K of RAM, the bigger, the more expensive, etc. And of course, there's EEPROM. There's also NVRAM, and they come in all sorts of different packages from 14 to 32 pin, including a 28 DIP, which is like quite brave of them to come up with a DIP chip of a new microcontroller these days. But if you're used to using RISC chipsets like RISC-V or ARM Cortex, you might be like, well, why would I want to go backwards to an AVR 8-bit? Well, one thing is simplicity. I mean, like, there was nothing as easy as controlling an AVR. You could really just put in register commands. You didn't have to worry about locking the bus or like muxing this or like this controller affected that. I mean, it's very simple. It's very straightforward. It's very fast. Your interrupts will go off very quickly because there's not as much sharing of this back-end resource, I found. They're very inexpensive because you're not paying the ARM licensing fee. And there's actually a surprising, a lot of people, they only move to maybe a 32-bit processor, not because they need literally the amount of speed or the number of bits in a multiply or add, but because they need all the peripherals. But there's some really cool peripherals. So we'll go over those in a second. So there's a bunch in this family. What I do like is that Microchip has kind of like done a very standardized way of like how many pins, how much flash and memory, and they made this little grid where it's like you can kind of get any config in anything. Obviously you're going to get more timers in when you have more pins, and I think there's like 2 underlying dies. But basically you pick your number of pins, then you pick the amount of flash, and you're mostly paying for flash memory, and the SRAM increases with it as well. So there's a range. Not all of them are in stock right now or released right now. So these are, the families basically, you double the flash, you double the RAM, EEPROM stays the same, and the NVM memory stays the same. Okay, so on to the peripherals. So here's some cool things. So one, it's running at 24 megahertz, which is a little faster than the standard like 16 or 8 that I'm used to, but it's got 5 timers, 4 16-bit timers and a 12-bit timer. There's 2 UARTs, 2 hardware UARTs, so you can use one for like debugging, and then you can use one for different hardware. You can have 2 hardware UARTs because you have, it's really, if you don't have a UART, you can't bit bang a UART very easily. There's SPI, there's I2C. There is a 12-bit ADC, so usually it's 10-bit, but this one is 12, which is quite nice. That's as good as you're going to get on a Cortex. And it's multiplexed to just about all the pins. I mean, on the 14, half the GPIO have ADC on them, 23 on the 32 pin, 7 on the 14. There's a 10-bit DAC, which is cool. There's the analog comparator and zero detector. These do not have the peripheral touch controller. You can kind of fake it with a 1 mega ohm resistor, and they don't have an op amp. They do have 2 cool things, the CCL LUT and the MVIO. And the CCL LUT is interesting. I think I forgot to add an image. Actually, no, the next image is the CCL LUT. So let's go to the CCL LUT. So it's kind of like a micro CPLD. And you can kind of make like a Manchester encoder, or you can make an SR latch. You basically get like 3 or 4 different modules, and each one has like a logic lookup table. So you can turn it into any kind of gate, and then you can take events or interrupts and be like, okay, this interrupt X or that interrupt, I want to generate a third interrupt or something, or I want that to come in, so this GPIO triggers this or triggers that. So it's an interesting, like if you would normally have an external piece of logic that just kind of helps you do a little bit of glue. It's built into the chips now, and I think it's probably handy when you're just doing like counters, timers, motor control, interrupt manipulation, where you want only trigger on this when not this interrupt, etc. So instead of doing that in software, which is slow, you can do that instantaneously in hardware with these logic lookup tables. The other thing that's cool, and I haven't seen that CC a lot I've seen before, but the MVIO is new and interesting. So it's a way of basically having 2 voltage domains for your microcontroller. So what you normally have is, like, let's say you have a 5-volt MCU, like these MCUs run up to 5 volts, and you need 5 volts because you're doing some CAN bus stuff or you're interfacing with hardware that it needs to be 5 volts, and you want a 3-volt sensor. We usually use a logic level shifter, right? Either you use like an I2C shifter, use some FETs and some pull-ups, and that works fine. But like now your board's gotten bigger, it's more complicated, the bill of materials has gone up. What this system does, and there's some code that shows what it looks like, is you basically have a separate VDDIO, VDIO2, and it can be higher or lower than the core voltage. In here it's 1.8, but it could be 1.8 to 3 or 1.8 to 5 or 5 to 3 or 5 to 2, whatever. And then there's one port for the GPIO that could be I2C, SPI, UART, or just plain GPIO, and that port can run on the second voltage, and it's completely logic safe for that voltage. So for example, instead of using a logic level shifter, you run your core at 3.3 volts. Some stuff is at 3, and then you have an LCD. A lot of LCD modules, they want to have 5-volt logic and power. Not a problem. You give it that second 5-volt power supply, and you don't have to worry about logic level shifting. Likewise, you can go the other way. You have a 5-volt core. You want to connect to a 3-volt sensor. Not a problem. You use the MVIO. You set that port up to be 3.3 volt, and then you talk to the sensor at that logic level. So pretty neat. And there's I kind of just love this diagram. There's like no logic level shifter. You do it all in. So check out TB3287. That's the app note on how to get started with this. It doesn't generate the voltage on its own. You do have to supply the voltage. So you do need to have the power supply, but you probably need that anyways to power the sensor. So you have enough current for the sensor. And here's the best part. All this is in stock.
No way.
You can actually buy it, and it's pretty affordable. So these chips, can you go back? Sorry.
Yeah.
These chips are unit 1, they're about $1.25 to $1.60 in quantity 100, which is kind of the standard pre-manufacturing quantity for microchip. They get down to $1. So these are, a lot more memory, a lot more timers, especially if you're always hungry for timers, and there's never enough. These are a great upgrade from your at megas, your maybe some X megas even, AT Tinys. Swap them in with this, and you'll be happy. You can also get a dev board. I'll show it off really quickly if people want to see it, but it's basically Curiosity Nano. I like these dev boards because they're breadboard friendly, and they've got the little debugging interface as well. And the debugging interface usually has serial as well. But these are nice. It uses UPDI, by the way, for programming and debugging. This is a great way to get all the GPIO. It's castellated, but you can also breadboard it up. And there's a tutorial on using this with the, you can see VDIO2 here, so you can use that if you want to test out the MVIO peripheral we just chatted about. And finally, there is support in MPLab, of course, which is the microchip/AVR IDE. But if you want to use Arduino, Spence Conde, who has some really great AVR and Mega Teeny cores, he's either added or is in the process right now of adding DD series, as he says. They've done the DD parts are shipping. So they picked up a couple of different chips and they're adding support. So you'll see that if you want to use Arduino core, that could be interesting mix Arduino with this kind of new peripheral chip.
Available on DigiKey. It's really in stock, 537 at the time of this printing. By printing, I mean screechawning. And here's a little short video.
The AVR-DD family is Microchip's latest addition to our portfolio of 8-bit AVR microcontrollers. Whether you're designing a household appliance, a robust controller board for a factory application, or an extremely low-power IoT sensor node connected to a device on the other side of the planet, The AVR DD product family makes it easy to prototype and get your product to market faster. The family features high-performance devices with large memories that are available in low pin count packages. They offer extremely low power consumption to increase battery life in portable applications. These MCUs are also excellent options for safety-critical and secure applications that require small form factor solutions. They offer noteworthy analog and real-time control capabilities, including a 12-bit differential ADC in a small 14-pin package. Other key features include a user-configurable event system, configurable custom logic, and many other core independent peripherals, so you can easily customize your design. This microcontroller family is available in 14, 20, 28, and 32 pins in SOIC, SPDIP, VQFN, and TQFP packages, with 16, 32, and 64 kilobytes of flash memory available in each of these packages.
On MPI.
All right. Thank you in the chat. You know, sometimes folks kind of say exactly the thing that you're thinking of, but they just crystallize it better. So Guy in the chat says, well, that helps with my what else to add to DigiKey cart problem. That's that's why we do these, because it's like you're checking out and you're like, well, you know, if you have a free shipping tier, if there's all these, whatever you're doing on the DigiKey site, if you're like, well, I may as well. That's why we do IMPI, because it works. And it's interesting. We were talking, you know, with the with the audio muted, but we were saying is like some weeks we're like, oh, let's do an NPI, and some weeks we're looking at some of the new products, we're like, oh, maybe not, and it's like, wow, this is actually pretty interesting. Like this is a really neat.
Yeah, so they don't, as I mentioned, they don't have the dip in stock yet, but they do have I think the SOIC is in stock, so it's big enough you can solder it onto one of our breakout boards and get started. Or again, I do recommend the Curiosity Nano. It's like $20 or so. But it kind of has everything, and you can get started with it, and you don't have to worry about, like, you know, how to wire the crystal or like the power supplies. But it's interesting. I mean, like, I think it's cool that they're continuing to innovate in this like 8-bit AVR land. Like, I know that everyone's kind of moved on, and they're like RP2040 or like Raspberry, you know, Pi or RISC-V or ESP32, but it's like there's actually still a lot going on in 8-bit.
Okay, quick question before we do new products. Could that microchip CPU be as a seesaw type board on a future Adafruit board?
It could be, especially since it's got, you know, the DAC and maybe this CCL LUT and the NVIO. Right now, of course, it's a very new chip. I wouldn't like gut everything to start over, but it's very affordable. You know, it's $1 each, and it's probably going to get less expensive. You know, it's going to get cheaper as time goes on. So definitely, you know, there's a couple different series of the DA series. And then this DD series, but they're taking the new peripherals from that they're designing, and they're adding them back into from the ARM Cortex land back into the AVRs. I think that's kind of neat.
Don't forget the code's fuel. Let's do some new products.
Oh, new. I forgot. Sorry, I was so distracted. New. Well, that was my 433 minutes of new silence. Okay, first up, we've got from iRobot, we've got the Create 3, which we had the Create 2, and now we've upgraded to the Create 3. This is cool because you and I met over Roomba hacking.
Yes.
People used to take Roomba robots and you would plug into like the debug port and you'd be able to control it. And people were doing this, and like I think iRobot was like, oh wow, that's kind of an interesting idea. Yeah, of course, you want to build robots, but the most annoying part of building a robot is the chassis and the motor driver and the drawing the sensors.
My favorite robot base, because I'm like, if they've
really
made
strong.
Millions of robots, it's the most successful household robot. If they've figured that out, this is what I want as a robo chassis.
Yeah. So it's not, I even like that they've got like little drill spots and everything. So it's basically like the guts of like the iRobot robot, but it's not like they just removed the vacuum. Like it is redesigned specifically, but it's designed based on the iRobot. So just so you know, it does not do any vacuuming.
The tagline isn't, it's all the parts that don't suck. But that could be.
That could be. What's cool is it's now got Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. They've updated it. You no longer need a cable, so you can control it remotely. They've got a Python web editor. They've got like all sorts of example code for sensors. They've got a sensor port. It's really neat. I like that they are continuing to do this. I know that iRobot, I think they just got purchased, and I know that they are still making robots for homes and making robots for industry, but their roots are from college kids who like to hack together robots, and I'm glad that they are coming back to it. So I think this is a really nice upgrade. It's a really good deal. Like, you would not be able to build this kind of quality robot chassis for the $300 that this costs. Like, believe me, like the motors and the battery and the charger and the case and the injection molder and the sensing and the Wi-Fi Bluetooth connection, it is cheaper just to get this and hack what you want onto it.
Yeah, and then here's a little
and
video.
And runs ROS as well.
Built from the blueprint of a Roomba robot vacuum, meet the Create 3 educational robot. iRobot's new mobile robot development platform for learning ROS 2. A canvas for your creativity, the Create 3 arrives pre-assembled and ready to go with a suite of smart technology. Program the Create 3 to perform simple behaviors, sounds, and movements to grasp the fundamentals of robotics, computer science, and engineering. Or tap into advanced applications including autonomous localization, navigation, and telepresence. The Create 3 lets you mount and power payloads, connect and run third-party hardware, use its cargo bay for storage, and dock the robot on its home-based charging station. As a connected robot, you can talk to the Create 3 in multiple ways and choose between running ROS 2, the iRobot coding app, or iRobot Education's Python web playground. Looking for ways to get started? Explore the iRobot Education Learning Library for basic tutorials and sample projects. Or check out the 3D simulation of the Create 3 using Ignition Gazebo or the iRobot coding app for increased access to robotics education and research. What will you create?
Next up, by popular request, we have another PIR sensor. This is a mini all-in-one PIR sensor that is, PCB or breadboard compatible. PIR sensors are great for detecting small animals or humans, basically warm things that reflect IR radiation. So these work about 5 meters away. We've carried like the standard 4-pin version for quite a bit, where it's like power, ground, delay time and output. This one has an output enable pin and also adds a sensitivity pin, so you can adjust how sensitive it is. So if you need a little bit more control over your PIR, you'll need to add the external resistor divider, but these sensors are a very easy and handy way to make a pretty advanced but project embeddable PIR sensor for detecting human motion.
And the star of the show tonight, besides you, LadyAda, our team, our customers, our community, and all the people who come together to show and share all the important things in the world of technology that you build yourself.
Yes.
Is this product tonight?
It's the Mac 17048. So the reason we have this is we love the LC709203 LiPo charge monitor and fuel gauge. It doesn't use an R-Sense, and it's very inexpensive, and it uses I2C. Unfortunately, it is end of line, and while we still can get the LC709203, eventually we will not be able to because it's no longer being made. So once we exhaust our reserves, we'll probably switch over to this, the BAC 17048, which, like the LC chip, is a fuel gauge that is... it does not require an R-Sense. You just plug the battery and then it monitors the battery while it's under load. This one has some neat things, like for example, in addition to of course voltage and percentage, it'll also tell you the charge or discharge rate, which is handy. So if you go back one, you can see on the screen, it running, the battery is running the Feather and the OLED. It's a pretty powerful Feather, so the charge rate's going down 21% an hour, and this is handy if you're like, you want to estimate whether your battery, how long it's going to take your battery to run out. So obviously you can always just time it with a timer, see how long your project runs. But with this, it's quite nice because you can see, okay, 21%, that means this will last 5 hours on this battery. So as you try swapping out different batteries, you can see what the rate is of change. It also has a lot of low power modes and alert modes. It has an interrupt output. If you want to be interrupted when the charge rate goes above or below a certain amount, the voltage percentage goes above or below a certain amount. And it's controllable over I2C. So we've got Arduino and CircuitPython/Python code available for it.
And that's new products.
New. I forgot to sing the new song before, so I'm singing it twice. That's okay. New.
Well, you're a scientist. That time doesn't matter in a lot of formulas.
No.
It doesn't have to move forward the arrow of time. You can use it. It can go either way.
Yeah.
In laboratory settings or in a vacuum.
You can play this video backwards.
Yeah. So it doesn't matter that you did it at the beginning.
I mean, here's the thing. You're a floating Boltzmann brain anyways.
I was telling Lamar about
know?
this story about the history of the law of thermodynamics, and I'm like, oh yeah, let me tell you about Boltzmann brains. This is great. Anyways, let's do some top secret, and while we're doing top secret, you can put your questions up in the Discord channel, and let's do some top secret.
Let's look in the vault.
Yeah, well, we got a quick video. We shot this in the park, so you can check it out. Okay, LadyAda, what is this?
Hey, we're here in Washington Square Park in a beautiful, sunny New York afternoon, and I'm testing out a UV sensor. This is the I2C UV-B sensor from Genicom, and I've got here an ESP32, and it's printing out the UVB raw data, and it's converting it to an index. Not sure if this index calculation is correct, but hopefully this data, I can capture it and then do some analysis.
That's top secret this week. We're gonna roll right into questions. Okay, I have a couple lined up. We answered the microchip one. That's done.
Sweet.
About the seesaw thing. Okay, is it better behaved on I2C than the LC709 203F?
I don't know whether
What is it referring to?
I think it's a new product because
so
it's
too.
similar. I think so, but it's hard to know if there's any weird exceptions. The LC709 does require quite a bit of clock stretching, and some platform, a lot of platforms are okay with it, but not all platforms are. I haven't measured the clock stretch. The fact of the matter is, like, the boards I would be using this with support clock stretch, and I haven't had any problems with them. I did not try this on a Raspberry Pi yet, which is usually the pickiest because it doesn't have hardware support for clock stretch, which is another reason why I3C is removing clock stretch support. I totally know those feels. But so far it's been solid. I've not had any issue with it, and I know that people have been using this sensor for a bit, so I think it's a little bit better, but I can't promise it will work with every platform forever in the future.
Okay, Scott left a little teaser before his maternity leave about the ESP32SX BLE. Any more info?
The reason we don't have BLE yet is, we want to integrate Nimble support. It's not easy. It's not trivial. It's not coming anytime soon, but it's something that we will eventually attack.
Okay, question on the LC709 203F. There's a few battery volume examples. Curious how different it would be to add some other battery sizes like 200.
The Max 17 doesn't, they do have like some pre-programmed table, and you can contact Maxim. I'll say, to be honest, you don't really need to use the pack size thing. It helps a little bit, but it's the batteries pretty much act the same no matter what. So you just want to get for the LC get close. For the Maxim, it doesn't seem to care.
Okay, and then this one, someone on YouTube have asked the Curiosity board header holes are not a line. I think it's an innovation from SparkFun.
Yes,
that's credit here
it's not aligned.
to help hold inline headers in place for soldering.
Yeah, it
or,
pinches them.
Or have enough friction to make good electrical contact.
I will say I don't use it. It's like it's a stagger header. I don't use it, and I probably should. I just never did. But it doesn't look like they're even, but they do work in a breadboard, and it basically holds the pins. I would not trust it instead of soldering, but it's probably going to be easier to solder and keep the pad straight.
Okay. How much stuff will the i3C break that uses Adafruit I2C clock stretching?
Well, i3C does not. Well, when we covered it last couple of months ago, it does not appear to support clock stretch, so it will not support clock stretch. However, i3C is still like not here yet. It's very, very, very early. I haven't seen any microcontrollers that support it. Probably only like processor chips because they want that inline interrupt and the readdressing. I do not know what will happen to clock stretch chips if you try to put them on i3C line.
Okay.
I mean, why have a standard if you can't break it, right?
Is it possible to communicate over Wi-Fi on ESP32S2 but not using a web server?
Yeah, sure. You can open up a socket and just send bytes over it. I don't know if there's an example code for it, but it's technically possible.
Okay. And them's the questions for the night. Oh, no, one more snuck in. What's the status of the new displays with iSpy?
So here's the deal. I got to redo like all of the displays, which I'm like not super excited about. But yeah, I have to redo a lot. I did just send out a board that's a little iSpy breakup. Basically, like I was doing it, and then like a lot of shit changed. And I just approved all new samples of the TFTs. And they're all compatible, but I have to change some things, and I have to like redesign a bunch of boards. And so I'm going to add iSpy connectors. So like it's happening. It's just like happening with a slight delay. But then again, time does not exist, so it's fine.
All right. That's our show for tonight.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody. Code is fuel. Special thanks to Zay, who's behind the scenes in our Slack channel, doing stuff and more. This has been an Adafruit production. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us tonight. We very much appreciate it. We'll see you all during the week. We have lots of new surprises, new products, new guides, new everything, and more. Thank you so much for being a cool, great place where lots of people can come together. The world needs more of this. We'll help lead the way together. Here is your moment of Zener.
Thanks, everybody.